What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 5 new monk builds in Path of Exile 2. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. This setup's main focus is to lock down your enemies with quick freezes that last a long time. Even bosses are vulnerable to being frozen, and we can just lay down insane amount of DPS while they're stuck doing no damage. Your main gameplay loop will revolve around using the Ice Strike to close the gap between the enemies. Then drop the Tempest belt to help you do more damage, and then activate your charged staff, Ice Strike and the Shattering Palm. If you're looking for the most powerful monk build that freezes and builds upon insane attack speed and cold damage, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the monk, and our ascendancy is the invoker. Then for the first skill we have the Ice Strike with support gems such as the Cold Infusion, Martial Tempo, Crescendo, Primal Armament and Inspiration. Then second we got the Shattering Palm with Execute, Blind and the Ice Bite. Then next we got the Herald of the Ice with Magnified Effect, Cold Mastery and Elemental Focus. Next we have the Ghost Dance with the Fast Forward and Clarity. Next up we have the Charged Staff with the Perpetual Charge, Persistence and Maim. Then for one of the last ones we got the Unbound Avatar with Fire Mastery and the Lightning Mastery. Then next we have the Charge Infusion with no support gems. Next up we got the Tempest Belt with Rage, Heavy Swing, Glacianation and Overabundance. Then for one of the last ones we have the Wind Dancer with Culling Strike, Cannibalism and Vitality. And finally for the last one we are using the Combat Frenzy with Profusion and Precision. Most of this setup is structured around using the Ice Strike and the Tempest Belt to delete enemies in split seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their speed and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node. Then go like this until we get these three, so Flow like Water, Mindful Awareness and the Step like Mist. Then next we keep continuing going like this, and take all of these, so the Flow State, Crashing Wave, then also Moment of Truth and finally the Conservative Casting. Next we move forwards until we are here, and then we take the Killer Instinct and the Tenfold Attacks. Then next we now take the left side and keep going until this half circle, while on our way taking all of these blue nodes, as well as the Resonance Keystone, and then stopping at this Deep Trance node. Then now we want to circle back a little, and keep going up top until we get to this Spectral Ward. Then afterwards we go till the end, and now take the right side, and then get all of these nodes that you can see right here. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Lead Me Through the Grace, then second get and Protect Me from Harm, then third we want to get I Am the Blizzard, and then finally for the last one we want an I Shall Rage. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that will spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. Our Ice Strike monk build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into farming boss maps or the essences. Our monk build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into farming boss maps or the essences. So when we start, we want to first of all get to this bottom right side like this. Then from here we can go until we get all the way to this point. Then next we get back to the middle and this time take the bottom left side and get all of these passives until this circle. And then when all of these are done, then we go again to the middle and this time take the middle part and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Slicing Quarterstaff with the bonus stats like the increased physical damage, adds more to physical damage, more accuracy, increased crit chance and attack speed. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Veiled Mask with evasion and energy shield. And for extras we want more increased evasion and energy shield. Then also max life and mana. And finally any type of resistance like fire or cold. Then for chest we have the Expert Scalper's Jacket with evasion and energy shield. And for more we want evasion rating, max energy shield, reduced attribute requirements and chaos resistance. Then for the belt we have the Utility Belt with 20% quicker flask recovery. And for bonus stats we want max life, cold and lightning resistance. Then for the gloves we got the Advanced Spiral Warp with max life, evasion and energy shield, increased attack speed and fire and cold resistance. Then for boots we're using the expert frayed shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more we for sure want the increased movement speed, then also max life and mana, and if possible then lightning resistance. Then for our first and second ring we got the same one, so we are going with the amethyst ring, as its base stat gives chaos resistance, and as chaos resistance is not that easy to get, so this is the best place to get free resistance. And then for more we want accuracy, more dexterity and more intelligence. And then finally for amulet we got the azure amulet with increased mana regen, and for more we need accuracy, plus more levels to all spell skills and cold or lightning resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work, and I will show you 2 rotations. So first up we have a very basic rotation, which is meant to clear big monster groups and just weak enemies. So all that we want to do is use the Shattering Palm and then follow that up with the Ice Strikes. The Shattering Palm in this case will act as the first engage mobility tool and to increase our crit rate, so then we can simply spam the Ice Strikes and obliterate enemies in few seconds. Or then the second rotation we mainly use against single targets and bosses. So this time we want to start with using the Ice Strike 4 times. Then next we use the Tempest Belt. Then afterwards 4 more Ice Strikes. Then Charge Staff. Then again 1 more Tempest Belt. And now finally you can keep spamming the Ice Strikes as much as possible. The main idea behind this is to use the Tempest Belt as a buffing tool, because it gives us a lot of damage and some extra attack range buff. So then we can use our Ice Strikes and the Charge Staff as our main DPS skills, and then just rinse and repeat. This build is extremely powerful, so no matter what you do, if you build it right, then you will be doing crazy amount of damage numbers. But if you wanted to know the most optimized skill rotation, then here they are. This setup is known as the Flicker Strike build, which generates massive amounts of frenzy charges from the combat frenzy by freezing and electrocuting enemies, which then we can even further convert to the power charges with our Resonance Keystone. Every time we have the power charges, we want to spend them on the Flicker Strike. Sometimes we can get so many rapid shots that we can get one-shotted by just how many enemies we dash through. And that is why for defense, we want to focus on building up our physical damage reduction and the shield charges, which then are further doubled by our Grim Feast buff. So if you're looking for the new top 1 monk build, then here it is. So let me show you the build, and for the main class, I have chosen to go with the monk, and our ascendancy is the invoker. Then for the first skill we have the Flicker Strike, and for support gems we want to go with the perpetual charge, close combat, heavy swing, heft and the concentrated effect. Then second we get the Tempest Fury with the electrocute, rage, martial tempo, inspiration and neural overload. Then next we got the Charge Staff with the persistence, conduction, primal armament and raising Tempest. Next we have the Herald of the Thunder with the cold infusion, glaciation and ice bite. Next up we have the Ghost Dance with just fast forward. Next we get the Grim Feast with the clarity and cannibalism. Next we have the Herald of the Ice with the cold mastery, magnified effect, lightning infusion and innervate. Next we got the Wind Dancer with the pin on lockdown. Then for one of the last ones we have the Tempest Belt with the overabundance, rage forge and the potential. And finally for the last one we are using the combat frenzy with the profusion. Most of this setup is structured around using the Flicker Strike to delete enemies in seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node. Then next let's go and take all of these 3, so the flow like water, mindful awareness and the crashing wave. Then next up we want to keep on going and take both of these whole circles, so the power within and the lust for power. Then from here let's keep going, and then next go up top here while taking all of these, so the Resonance Keystone while also getting the True Strike for the Juggler and the Deadly Force. And then from here we can go all the way up top, and from this point you can just unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they are the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements for gear and skill gems, and then after that spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more dexterity. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again. And for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Lead Me Through the Grace, as this makes you gain spirit per energy shield and evasion on your body armor. This should be one of the first gear pieces you craft or purchase to reach enough spirit to use all of your passive skills. Then second we get and Protect Me from Harm. This one is crucial for defense, allowing you to gain additional physical damage reduction based on your evasion rating. Then third we get Sunder My Enemies, which is a huge DPS increase. It also means that you don't have to spec any penetration nodes. And then finally we have the I Am the Blizzard, which adds additional cold damage and makes it easier to freeze the enemies. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we wanna first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back to middle, and this time take the left side and get all of these nodes. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have even more passives, which in order you unlock them doesn't really matter. So again, it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses. And then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup. And then finally we have our breach setup. Then moving over to the next part, which is the gear. The weapon of our choice is the Crescent Quarterstaff with a crit and weapon speed. And for bonus stats we want increased physical damage, then also adds the physical or cold damage, then even more crit like crit chance, crit damage bonus and increased attack speed. Then for helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with the energy shield, and for more we want even more max energy shield, then basic increased energy shield, then max life and increased critical hit chance. Then for chest we have the Expert Fey Veyor jacket with evasion and energy shield. And for more we got Chaos Resistance, Evasion, Max and increased Evasion and Energy Shield. Then also more to Intelligence and Fire and Cold Resistance. Then for belt we have the Utility Belt with 20% faster Flask Recovery. And for more we need Max Life, Evasion, more to Charm slots, and then Lightning and Fire Resistance. Then for gloves we got the Expert Spiral Warps with the Evasion and Energy Shield. And for more we got adds cold damage to attacks, max life, increased attack speed and fire and cold resistance. Then for boots we're using the Expert Threaded Shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more we need increased movement speed, max life and then chaos and cold resistance. Then for our first ring we got the Unsent Ring with one additional skill slot. And for more we need adds lightning damage to attacks, max life, percentage to all elemental resistances, and more to lightning resistance. While then on the second one we have the Breach Ring, with max quality now is at least 50%, and for the extras we got max life, adds cold damage, percentage to all elemental resistances, and cold and fire resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Serpent's Egg with bunch of stuff, like increased rarity, more to all attributes, more chaos resistance, increased mana regen, and most importantly, gain additional charge when you gain a charge, so pretty much this will double it. This amulet is the best in slot but not required, so if you can't afford it or find it, then you can just go with anything else with similar stats. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap. This is a starter setup which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And I will give you two rotations, so one for AoE and one for single targets. So our highest damage rotation for AoE mob farming and maps is to start by activating the Tempest Fury. Then next use the Charge Staff. Then afterwards one more Tempest Fury, then now use once the Flicker Strike. Then again one more Tempest Fury, and then finish it off with one more Flicker Strike. Our ailments are essential for the Flicker Strike to function, as it is our primary method to generate power charges. So that's why each time we want to use the Tempest Fury to activate it and keep on going. And then for the second rotation, this time for the bosses we want to use once the Tempest Fury, then the Tempest Belt, then again the Tempest Fury in combination with the Charge Staff. Then next we do the same thing again, so Fury with the Charge Staff, then use twice the Tempest Fury and then finish it off with the Tempest Belt. Overall we want to place down our Tempest Belt as much as possible, as it gives us a massive damage bonus, especially against bosses. And then lastly, our evasion and energy shield will allow us to utilize the Ghost Dance, as well as grant us with spirit from the body armor. And then lastly, our evasion and energy shield will allow us to utilize the Ghost Dance, as well as granting us with the Spirit from the Body Armor, to enable all of our passive skills to work properly. This setup is known as the Lightning Storm Monk build, which uses the Acolyte of Chayula Ascendancy to allow you to embrace the darkness by sacrificing spirits. This build will offer a unique playstyle focused on storm damage and the manipulation of the darkness powers. With the strong defensive capabilities of Embrace the Darkness, as well as the Life and Energy Shield Leech, the Acolyte of Chayula will offer a great set of tools for survival, but where the huge drawback usually was in his lack of damage. So I did a lot of hours of testing and now we finally have a build that can easily compete and even outperform the Invoker Monk builds. So if you're ready for this simple enough build that only requires for you to spam 2-3 buttons and then obliterate anyone and everyone that stands in your way, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Monk, and our Ascendancy is the Acolyte of Chayula. Then for the first skill we have the Gathering Storm with the support gems such as the Overcharge, Lightning Exposure and the Coursing Torrent. Then second we got the Siphoning Strike with the Profusion and the Culling Strike. Then next we got the Charge Staff with the Perpetual Charge, Persistence, Withering Touch and the Overpower. Next we have the Tempest Belt with Magnified Effect, Rage and Overabundance. Next we are also using the Tempest Fury with the Close Combat, Crescendo and the Martial Tempo. Next we have the Storm Wave with the Conduction, Lightning Infusion and Primal Armament. Then we got the Ghost Dance with the Fast Forward and Precision. Next we have the Wind Dancer with the Maim and the Blind. And finally for the last one we got the Herald of the Thunder with the Innervate and the Shock Siphon. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node and make our way like this until we get the flow like the water and the essence of the storm. Next up we continue making our way like this and get the crashing wave and the momentum truth. Then next we want to keep going up until this point and then now take the right until we unlock both these nodes. So the exposed to the storm and the wild storm. Then from here we want to get more crit chance, and we mainly can do it in two places. So first we circle back a little and get these two nodes, and then from here again let's go to the top right corner and we want to unlock all of these blue nodes. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we got are important, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game to make our build functional, and in the late game to make it even more powerful. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Walking Dream, then next get the Lucid Dream, then from here for the third option we get the Reality Rending, and then finally for the last fourth option we want to go with the Chayula's Gift. Some players also prefer to go with the more mana leech instead of the resistance, but that's why in the main tree we spend few points on the mana, so then we could easily utilize our Ascendancy to the max and get the Chayula's Gift. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that will spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as the expeditions or the rituals. Also, our Lightning Monk has a very strong single target damage, so farming boss maps or essences is also a good option. So when we start we want to first of all get this bottom left side like this, then now we go to the top right side and get all of these passives. And then finally from here you want to go to this top middle part and get the rest of the passives in no particular order. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Slicing Quarterstaff. This is the most important item and you want to acquire a high physical or lightning damage. Overall most players can choose between 3 options, so go either way with the Expert Crescent, as it is the highest performing one due to the Charge Staff giving a ton of flat lightning damage. Then next you can also go with the Slicing Quarterstaff, which I've chosen for myself, as it is one of the easier items to get and has the highest DPS per hit. Or then lastly we can as well get the Gothic Quarterstaff, which has the highest crit rate. All of these options have positives and negatives, so choose whichever one you get first or the specific bonus that you need. And then for more bonuses we want increased physical damage, more accuracy, increased attack speed and or increased critical hit chance. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with the Energy Shield. And for more stats we want max life, evasion and chaos resistance. Then for the chest we have the Expert Studded Vest with a lot of evasion. And for bonuses we want even more evasion, max life and cold resistance. Then for belt, we have our utility belt that recovers our flask 20% quicker. And for bonus stats, we want more max life, 1 charm slot and the fire resistance. Then for gloves, we got the expert gauze wraps with the evasion and energy shield. And for extras, we want max life, max mana and fire resistance. And by the way, if you ever run into the mana problem, then just equip few more mana regen stats, or just cast few less charged staffs until you recover. But our specific build should not be struggling if you use decent enough gear. Then for boots, we are using the expert frayed shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more, we need increased movement speed, more evasion and max life. Then for our first ring, we got the ruby ring with fire resistance, and for more, we want max life and cold resistance. While on the second one, we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance, and for the extras, we want to get lightning resistance and more critical hit chance. And then finally for the amulet, we got the bloodstone amulet with max life, even more critical hit chance and more percentage to all elemental resistances. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So pretty much all monks have proven that by using the charged staff, it will give you an insane damage buff that is worth investing into by keeping a high uptime. It's also important to make sure that you're using the Gathering Storm on mob bosses and the pinnacles to apply a shock through its shocked ground and exposure through the lightning exposure. And finally, the last important skill is the Tempest belt, as he can do his own damage each time it gets hit. And this is the majority of our single target DPS. So the general gameplay of this build is pretty straightforward. And no matter which rotation you're doing, always have the charge staff active pretty much 24/7. And for weak enemies like we have right here, you can simply spam 2 buttons. So the Siphoning Strike for mobility and the Storm Wave for clearing the mob packs. And then second, for single targets, we can also use the Tempest Fury with the Tempest belt, while also using the Gathering Storm to massively debuff the boss. So this is a very unique build, where we are going to be combining a bunch of different setups into one big powerhouse, which on top of all of this is standing the Falling Thunder skill. The main idea behind this build is to get easy power charges from the Combat Frenzy and the Resonance Keystone. And with enough of these charges, we will be able to generate so much that we are easily able to maintain our charge staff, and then even further boost it up with the Falling Thunder for massive amounts of AoE damage. Overall, this is an endgame build that combines cold and lightning damage to freeze and electrocute enemies at the same time, while in the background we are automatically generating more and more power charges and much more. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with the monk and our ascendancy is invoker. Then for the first skill we have the Falling Thunder with the support gem like the ambush, long shot, perpetual charge, ricochet and acceleration. Then second, we get the Tempest Flurry with Electrocute, Martial Tempo, Inspiration, Rage and Neural Overload. Then next we got the Charge Staff with Persistence, Primal Armament, Conduction, Coursing Current and the Calling Strike. Next we have the Herald of the Thunder with the Ice Bite, Cold Infusion and Glaciation. Next we got the Tempest Bell with the Rage Forge, Concentrated Effect, Overabundance and Heavy Swing. Next we got the Wind Dancer with the Pin and the Lockdown. Next we got the Herald of the Ice with the Lightning Infusion, Magnified Effect and Innervate. Next we got the Grim Feast with the Cannibalism and Clarity. And finally we are using the Combat Frenzy with the Pin and Lockdown. Most of this setup is structured around using our Falling Thunder to delete enemies in split seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node, and then go like this while taking these two, so flow like water and the crashing wave. Then next we go to the left and take the moment of the truth and the power within. Then from here we now want to go to the other side and then get this whole thing. So Essence of the Mountain, Siphon, Subterfuge Mask and the Lust for Power. Then from this we circle back to here and then keep on going until we get to the Killer Instincts. Then afterwards we now want to move to the left and get this keystone called the Resonance, while also taking these three, so the True Strike for the Juggler and Deadly Force. And then from here you want to get all the way up here, and only from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then later on the priority doesn't really matter that much. And then now, let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock Lead Me Through the Grace, as this will make you gain Spirit per Energy Shield and Evasion on your body armor. This part is very important, so get it as your first equipment piece. So then you're able to reach enough spirits for all of our passive skills. And then second we go with And Protect Me from Harm. This one is important for defense, because it will allow you to gain additional damage reduction based on your evasion rating. Then third, get Disother My Enemies. We can save a lot of our skill points once we have enough critical strike chance, as it will allow you to remove all the lightning penetration nodes. And then finally we go with I Am the Blizzard, and this will give us extra cold damage and make it much easier to freeze the enemies. So feel free to use the exact same path as we have right here, and don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, like in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we wanna first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. And then from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we also have sub-passives, and their order in which you unlock them doesn't really matter, so this time it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses. Then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup. And then finally our bridge setup. And next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Crescent Quarterstaff with a crit and weapon speed. And for bonus stats we want increased physical damage, adds physical and cold damage to attacks, and then also increased critical hit chance, critical damage bonus and attack speed. Then for helmet we have Expert Feather Tiara with Energy Shield. And for more we need Max Energy Shield, Max Life and increased critical hit chance. Then for the chest we have the Expert Wayfarer Jacket with Evasion and Energy Shield. And for more we want Chaos Resistance, Evasion, Max Energy and Life, as well as more to Intelligence. Then for belt we have the Utility Belt with 20% faster flask recovery. And for more we are going with Max Life, more Evasion and more to charm slots. Then for gloves we got the Expert Spiral Warps with Evasion and Energy Shield. And for more we have adds fire damage to attacks, Max Life and increased attack speed. Then for boots we're using the Expert Shredded Shoes with Evasion and Energy Shield. And for more we got increased movement speed, Max Life and Chaos Resistance. Then for our first ring we got the Unsent Ring with us gaining one additional skill slot. And for more we got adds lightning damage to attacks, Max Life, more to all elemental resistances and more to lightning resistance. While for the second one we have the Breach Ring with max 50% quality. And for more we have adds cold damage to attacks, Max Life, more to all elemental resistances and cold resistance. And then finally for the amulet we have the Serpent's Egg. This item is not required, however it is the best in slot, as it will give us more power charges and make our build much more powerful. But if you can't get it, then look for similar items with more to all attributes, chaos resistance and increased mana regen. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work, and I will give you 2 rotations. So first up we have AoE farming, and for this one we want to start by using the Tempest Flurry, which will automatically activate the Combat Frenzy. So then afterwards we can use the Charged Staff and then once again the Tempest Fury, which will again keep on activating the Combat Frenzy. So then afterwards we use the Charged Staff, then once again the Tempest Flurry, which will again keep on activating the Combat Frenzy. So then we repeat this process one more time. And then when we get to 3 charges, then now we finish it off with the Falling Thunder. And then for single targets, this time we want to start by using the Tempest Fury. Then next activate the Tempest Belt. Then like in the first rotation, we keep repeating using the Charged Staff with the Tempest Fury 2 times. Well then, when we are finishing with that, then now we use 2 more Tempest Furies. And then finally finish it off with the Tempest Belt. The main idea behind this gameplay is that the Tempest Flurry is a fast-hitting melee skill that can trigger shockwaves from the Charged Staff to deal massive amount of lightning damage. Additionally, we use the extra power charges on the Falling Thunder for massive AoE damage. And finally, only for single targets like for the boss fights, we also place down the Tempest Belt on strong targets for a massive amount of damage boost. This setup is very unique because we are going to be utilizing the Tempest Fury for the huge speed and distance buffs, so then we could proc the cast when shocked and summon hundreds of lightning balls to shock the enemies around. It also utilizes the cast on critical to occasionally spawn the Orb of Storm to increase our CC and DPS potential even more. If you're looking for a fun monk starter build with leveling and mid-game setups, then here they are. So let's move over to the build. For our main class we have the monk, and our ascendancy is the invoker. Because of our weapon, our basic skill is the quarterstaff strike. Then second we got the Tempest Fury with support gems such as Conduction, Martial Tempo, Crescendo, Soul Thief and Life Thief. Then next we got Cast on Shock with support gems like the Ball Lightning, Lightning Mastery, Wild Shards, Impetus and Scatter Shot. Next we have Cast on Critical with the Orb of Storms, Overabundance, Magnified Effect, Spell Echo and Lightning Exposure. Next we have Ghost Dance with support gems such as Clarity, Vitality and Precision. Then for the next two we got the Tempest Bell and Vaulting Impact, and for them we don't want to use any gems. Next we have the Killing Palm and we only get the Behead gem. Then next we have the Enfeeble and we use the Heightened Curse. And finally for our last one we got the Temporal Chains with no support gems. Overall you want to add the Ghost Dance only after you get enough spirits from the Lead Me through the Ascendancy node. Most of this build is structured around using the Tempest Fury and Cast on Critical, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their damage, while the rest are powerful filler skills that we can use until our main rotation comes back up. Next, let's quickly take a look at our leveling setup, which we can use up until about level 25. So first off we have the Tempest Fury with the Martial Tempo and Crescendo. Then next we have the Storm Wave with the concentrated effect. And then finally we have our Orb of Storms with Overabundance and Controlled Destruction. This is your basic setup up until you get more spirits and points to spend. So for leveling, just keep using the Tempest Fury with the Storm Wave and the Orb of Storms for big single and AoV damage. Also, once you get a good quarterstaff that has some combination of flat physical damage, increased physical damage and or flat lightning damage, then you should probably start going into the mid-game build. And on top of all of this, don't forget to use the Tempest Bell skill, as it plays a huge role, so spam it whenever you can. Next up we have our passive skill tree. For most new players, this can seem extremely daunting, but actually it's quite simple. In very simple terms, every character is granted one passive skill point every time they level up, and sometimes are even granted more for completing certain quests. In general we have 3 node types, so small nodes, notable nodes and keystones. All of them act as checkpoints that you want to reach, and make a path to build around a specific playstyle. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the Evasion and Energy Shield, and go to the right side like this. Then now come back here and get both these nodes, so the Essence of the Storm and the Crashing Wave. Then next we continue the path like this, get the Momentum of the Truth on our way, and continue making our way up until the top and taking all of these nodes in our way as well. Then next up we take the right side and get all of these 3 nodes. And then finally from here, we make our way all the way to the left side and get these nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then last but not least, we come back all the way to the middle and here's our Ascendancy points. And this is how it should look like. So first we want to get this under my enemies, then the Soul Spring Eternal, then Lead to me through the Grace, and finally protect me from harm. To simplify my decision making in the main tree, then basically we wanted to prioritize the 10-fold attacks and Killer Instinct nodes, as this will give us the biggest build upgrade, so we wanted to get them first. On top of this, the small attack nodes, so the 10% ones, are good as well in early game, so we get them as well. In general, in POE 2, earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be wise not to spend your points recklessly. You can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you're following my setup, then make sure to not deviate from it, as some of my decisions that I make might not make sense at first, but is going to pay off later. So please use the exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget that you can check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should help you to make it easier for you to follow the path. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Advanced Crackling Quarterstaff with critical, speed and of course the min and max damage. This is not required, but in the best case scenario we could get at least one prefix with the lightning damage. Then for the helmet we have the Advanced Brim Helm with armor and evasion, and if possible then get maximum life prefix. Then for the chest we have the advanced Anchorite garb with evasion and energy shield, and if possible then get more evasion or maximum life. Then for belt we have the fine belt with maximum mana. Then for gloves we got the adorned gloves with energy shield, and if possible then also get maximum life. Then for boots we are using the advanced frayed shoes with evasion and energy shield, and if you can then get maximum mana increase. Then for our first ring we got the ruby ring with the fire resistance and our maximum life, while on the second one we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance and evasion rating. And then finally for the amulet we got the azure amulet with increased mana regen and evasion. As the game just launched, so this is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Your weapon will be the most important upgrade, so prioritize flat damage of any type. Specifically the lightning damage roll will be the most important one, as your skills themselves can do a lot of conversion as well. And then for defenses, make sure that you're regularly updating the base type of your gear, so look for increased mana, life and any type of resistances, to try to get them at least to 75% cap. Some evasion is also important to roll, especially on the body armor. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So for bossing or large rare enemies, we want to start this rotation by engaging with the vaulting impact and then hit enemies with the Tempest Fury. This combo will utilize a huge attack distance and fill our screen with the lightning balls that do big damage. And then from here, if the enemies are not dead, then we can follow it up with the Enfeeble and then the Tempest Bell. As I mentioned previously, our Tempest Bell will play a huge role on our DPS, so spam it as much as possible. And then as far as all the other skills go, they are just filler spells, so just use them until you get the main rotation back up.